One of the most difficult things in macro photography is focusing. We all know that 90% of your images are going to be blurred. In this video, I'm going to give you some tips into how to focus in macro photography. So focusing is one of those banes in macro photography that is just very hard to do. 90% of your images are going to come out blurred, but there are some tips and some tools you can use to nail your focus first time and every time. There are various methods of focusing for macro photography depending on your skill level, from beginner to expert. So the first one I want to talk about is autofocus. So I have my Canon 650D here with the Yongnuo flash, and I'm going to set my stabilizer on because I am handheld, and I have the autofocus set to automatic. So this is straight out the box, automatic, okay? So we have Bungee is on a little tangerine that I've let go off for about 3-4 weeks, and it's created a very nice texture, and I have one of my background cards. You can find those on the website if you want to have a look at that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to 1:1 on my magnification, and then I'm going to try and take a picture of Bungee with autofocus. Okay, now it's hunting all over the place. Let's put it back to 1:1 and try again. So the autofocus is very difficult. It's hunting all over the place. So I'm going to give you some tips on how you can tell the autofocus what it's actually looking at. The first thing you want to do is go into your focusing points, and you want to select the middle point. So what you're doing here is you're going, hey camera, only look at the center point for focusing. Ignore everything else. That will help narrow down the autofocus to bang on to the spider's eyes. The other thing I'm also going to do is on this particular lens, I can limit the distance that the autofocus will hunt and seek. So I'm going to turn that to 0.3 meters to 0.5. That limits where the lens can look for autofocus. And of course, you can choose any focus point you wish to use. Now, what I've got to do now is set my magnification again. I'm on 1:1. That gives the lens and the camera a ballpark figure where to start with. And I'm going to put the middle focus point right on Bungee's eyes, and then I'm going to let the autofocus do its job. Now, the one other thing you are going to face with this setup is when you press the autofocus, it's going to lock in the focus, but then if your subject or yourself moves, it's going to be out of focus. To fix that, we're going to choose autofocus operation, and we're going to go to AI servo. What that's going to do, it's going to tell the camera to look at the middle point now and keep the middle point in focus no matter whether I move or the spider moves. So let's take another shot now. You can hear there how the autofocus is continuously searching for that point. So if you're uncomfortable with manual focus or any of that, you can use autofocus. The downside of autofocus is as you get closer to the subject, the autofocus gets more confused. So if you're after more magnification, unfortunately, you may need to turn off your autofocus. So if you are struggling with manual focus, don't be afraid to use autofocus, because no matter what people say in forums and in Facebook groups, you can use autofocus if you wish to. So if you're a little bit brave, you can always turn off the autofocus. So I'm going to turn that off now. I will keep my stabilizer on. And what you want to do now is you set up your camera in a position that you like, you frame up your subject, and you're going to move the focusing ring to focus. With that one, you just got to look at where you want to focus, get it as sharp as possible. Usually you'll go just past where the focusing point is and bring it back, and then you can take the picture. You got to get a lot of practice to see which way the ring turns for focusing in or focusing out. It takes a lot of practice, and every lens can be different. So on the Canon, you focus from right to left, it will go out, whereas on the lower, it will focus in. So that's just something you have to get used to if you want to do that. So manual focus, when you first start doing it, can be a bit awkward because you don't know which way to turn your focusing ring, focusing out or in. And of course, you can always use back button focus to get the best of both of these methods. But once you get used to it, you can use that as a method for focusing in macro photography. The next method is to set your lens to manual focus, but instead of moving the focusing ring on your lens, you move the camera back and forward. And this method is probably the method used by 90% of macro photographers out there. So for this shot, all I'm going to do is I'm going to look through my viewfinder. I'm going to frame up Bungie, and then I'm going to move forward until his eyes come into focus and take a picture. So that one is probably the easiest, because all you got to do is simply think to yourself, if it's out of focus, move forward till it's in focus, and then you just rock backwards and forwards with your camera and take the picture. This method is great for doing focus stacking as well, so you just move forward and take multiple pictures and stack them together. I think the moving the camera forward and backward is probably the better way to focus in macro photography, no matter what system you're using. Now, to say your eyesight is not the best in the world, and let's face it, as we get older, our eyesight does start to go, there are a couple of things in your digital SLR you can use to help with your focusing. So all the way through the video, you've heard this little noise. That noise is the camera telling me that that particular focus point is focused and is sharp. So you need to go into your camera settings. Now, normally out the box, this feature is turned on. I'm going to show you my 650D. Again, check your camera's manual for where you find this. And we have beep, enable or disable, and we have touch, which I've never used. I keep it enabled. What that does is simply this. When we selected that middle focusing point, that is our focusing point that we want to use. We're telling the camera, only look at that focusing point. When we move forward, as Bungie or your subject comes into focus, it's going to flash red, and then you're going to hear a beep. And when you hear that beep, just press that shutter button. Now, you're not going to now focus every single time, but that audible beep and the visual flash of your focusing point will help you know that that is where you are focusing. Hearing and seeing those focus points flash and beep can help you greatly in nailing the focus in your macro photography. So another method that you can use to help with focusing is live view. So when you go into live view, essentially it's turning your camera into a mirrorless camera. And what you can do is you can see on the back of the screen here your setup, your scene. So then I am able to use the back of the screen to focus. When you're in this mode, you've got a tool that can help you nail focus every single time. So we're going to go into live view now, and then we can zoom in. Again, check your camera's manual for how to do this on your particular camera. But I can zoom in on Bungie's eyes and then nail critical focus right on the eye. Now, so long as your subject doesn't move, you're good to just take the picture. So this is a very bulky, slow type of way of being able to do it, because you've got to have your camera on a tripod. It's very hard to do it handheld. But it is a way that you can nail your focus every single time using live view and zooming in on that screen. So focus peaking is probably the best thing for focusing in macro photography. It does have some downsides, but the plus sides outweigh all of the negatives. So I can't show you the focus peaking on here, so what I'm going to use my field monitor. This is the Field World monitor, and I use this for doing my videos, but it also has a focus peaking option. So I'm going to show you the back of that rather than the back of my camera. So focus peaking is an overlay on your EVF or the back of the screen that highlights the pixels that are sharp. So you can see here in this example, I have set my focus peaking to red. And you can see as I'm moving back and forward, you can see the red pixels that are getting highlighted. This is fantastic. I absolutely love the focus peaking. So all I've got to do now to take a picture of Bungie is move the camera forward like we talked about in point 3. And when his eyes light up with the focus peaking colour, I can just snap that picture. You can see there how easy it is to use focus peaking for manual focus in macro photography. Now on my EOS R, I also have a little box that highlights green whenever it is in focus, which is another visual aid you can get. Now remember when I talked about the live view, when you press a button you can zoom in? I can do exactly the same on my EOS R when looking through the viewfinder. So not only can I check focus peaking if I want to, I can also zoom in to see if it's in focus. Downside of that is when you zoom in, you lose the focus peaking, which is a bit of a bummer. I would have liked to have both of them, you know, best of both worlds, but unfortunately that doesn't happen. Also, focus peaking doesn't work if it's set to autofocus. Well, not on this camera. It does work with the field monitor, but not internally with this camera. Focus peaking, in my opinion, is the best method to go with for macro photography. Seeing your actual pixels highlight in your EVF is fantastic, and I can generally nail focusing 80% of the time rather than missing it 80% of the time. And adding on the fact with one button I can zoom in to see where the focusing is another plus point for mirrorless cameras. So there are 6 methods for focusing in macro photography. Which one do you use in your macro photography? Let me know in the comments below. But for now, I will leave it there. My name is Stuart Wood, and again, I will see you on the next project. That went well for the first time, didn't it, Bungie? Let's get started with tip. Put this part out. You got to do a lot of practice to get that focusing as to which way do you turn the ring and for it to focus. It will, when you're not going to hit the Now you're not going to hit the focusing point every single time, but that visual aid of your focusing point flashing and the beep will let you know that it is unfocused. Now when you're in this mode, you have an added tool that Well, I think we have enough there, Bungie. What we have to do now is get the B-roll, okay?